It's time to fire this thing up.
Welcome aboard ShipShape TV Essentials. This is your port of call for the most impactful upgrades, expert advice, and hands-on solutions from seasons past. This episode is proudly brought to you by SureHold, because anything worth doing is worth doing bright. From cleaning to protecting and perfecting, SureHold has everything you need to keep your boat shining. Don't just go boating, go showboating. Now, let's hoist anchor and set a course for another exciting episode of ShipShape TV Essentials.
If boating's your game, then you'll agree. ShipShape is the way to be. Out on the lake or on the sea, ShipShape means trouble-free. ShipShape means being neater. ShipShape makes boat work easier. ShipShape is the way to go. The ShipShape Boat Care Show.
It's great to have you working around the boat with us today. I'm John Greviskis. What I'm doing here is I'm putting in a new fuel fill hose for a project boat. You might remember a couple of weeks back we had a customized fuel tank installed. Well, today we're going to hook up the fuel hose and vent hose and revamp the entire fuel system from the tank back to the engines. Then we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to show you how to install and wire an isolated 3-battery system. Get ready for a couple more great ways to make your boat shipshape.
ShipShape, America's favorite boat improvement show, is being brought to you in part by Stainless Marine. Fly like an eagle with performance-proven products for every boat owner. Mid-Island Marina, home of the VIP guarantee. And by Inflatable Experts, Florida's inflatable superstore.
This is our 1.5-inch fuel fill hose, which runs from our gunnel, which is where the fuel fill is, all the way along our tank, back to our fuel fitting. And the U.S. Coast Guard requires that you double clamp any fuel fill hose or vent hose below deck. Let me get this thing out of the way. Put our hose on.
Now this is our fuel vent, and this is a 5/8 vent hose. The original vent in this boat was a flared copper tube, and it screwed into a vent on the side of the boat.
Nick, there's a lot of copper on this boat. Why were they using that?
In the old days, copper was the norm. It was easy to work with. They could bend it and flare it. Today, with the quality of rubber hoses and such that's available, we've pretty much gotten away from it in boats. Now I'm going to change this old copper to a 5/8 rubber fitting as well, and then we'll also change the vent through on the side of the boat.
The next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove this old fuel filter and replace it with some new ones. Now, again, the Coast Guard requires that you have either a shutoff valve, which is this piece of apparatus here, or a check valve installed in your fuel system. We've decided to go with a shutoff valve, and Nick, you've got a story to tell us why.
John, I learned from experience. About 17, 18 years ago, I was working at a large mercury dealer up on the Jersey Shore, and we brought a boat down to the water. I just put a brand new 175 Merc on it. Went to go for a boat ride. We put the boat on plane, and it kept dying out, dying out. After hours of troubleshooting, the head customer, we figured out that it wasn't able to pull, the outboard couldn't pull the fuel through the spring-loaded check valve on the tank. We put a hose barb in and a shutoff valve, and it ran fine. And since then, I've never used the check valves. I've always gone with shutoff valves.
So outboard motors don't have enough suction to pull?
Right, the fuel pumps aren't strong enough to open the little ball and spring inside the check valve.
So that check valve is mainly for the inboards? Correct. Okay, great. Well, let me get this out of the way here.
While I'm working up here, what I'm doing is I'm pulling a 14.3 triplex to hook to our Centroid fuel sender, and I'm also getting that bond wire run through so I can hook it from the fuel fill to the tab on the tank. Once we get that done, we can pull our Type A fuel hose through the bulkhead and to where the filters that John's mounting. And we're done underneath here. We can hook the wires up, pull the hoses, put this hatch back down and be wrapped up.
Guys, whenever you're removing your old fuel filters, make sure that if there's any gas in there that you're careful you don't spill it into our groundwater. We want to be environmentally conscious. Oh, we're good on this one.
About ready to hook the filters up?
Yeah, let's do it. We started by applying Teflon tape to all the brass fittings, then installed them into the filter head and shutoff valves. Next, we applied grease to the filter element, seal, and threads.
The new filter was mounted and the hoses run from it to the shutoff valves. We installed our Type A fuel hose to the tank and supported it with rubber insulated clamps. We then ran the fuel hose to the primer ball and readied it to pass through the transom. Finally, I wired the bond and sender wires on the tank.
Well, Nick, that about completes our fuel system. Can you help me with this hatch?
Sure thing, John. Turned out well.
Right now we need to go to commercial break, but stay with us. When we come back, we're going to be drilling through the transom.
Ship Shape TV will be right back. We now return to Ship Shape TV.
Welcome back. I'm drilling a hole through the transom so we can attach our rigging through hulls, and this will give a place for our wires and hoses to go through the transom. It'll also help keep them out of the elements.
When we get these rigging through hulls mounted, then I'll attach this 2-inch tube to the rigging through hulls, and I'm going to cut them about 36 inches long for now and trim them once I mount the engines. They're going to slide right over, and again let all those wires and harnesses and battery cables and everything go from the back of the boat to the motors and stay protected.
What you got going on inside?
So we're getting ready to mount our batteries, and if you notice, I chose these 24 series 1000 amp batteries.
Holy cow, those things will start a tractor trailer.
Yeah, these got a lot of power. Just because we chose a little larger battery for our accessory battery, I don't want to sell these batteries short, by no means.
Okay, explain this isolated 3 battery system.
Okay, 3 batteries, port crank, starboard crank, accessory. Now the accessory battery is going to get charged through this isolator. Now this isolator is going to pick up from one of the engines and put its charging power to the center post. Then it's going to distribute it, one to the accessory and one to its cranking battery, and there's diodes or check valves in there to keep that voltage from going different directions.
So whichever one's low, it's going to feed the current to that one.
That's right.
Fantastic. Now Jerry from Stainless Marine, he sent over a couple of pretty stout battery holders. Tell us about those.
This is a battery hold down, which you would typically see, say, in an offshore boat or a sport boat, performance style boat. And a lot of people are starting to run them in everyday boats because they're tired of their batteries busting out of these little plastic boxes that come with their boats. This is all stainless steel, it's powder coated. The battery's going to lock in and then get a lid to hold it in place. That battery's not going to go anywhere.
Great. Well, while we're mounting those, I want you guys to check out this great new boat that's out on the water. In fact, Nick, I think you're going to like it too.
Let's check it out.
Let's have a look.
My assignment this week was to check out the luxurious new Sea Ray 270 Sundancer. Standard power on this model is a 7.4-liter Mercruiser stern drive. This particular boat is equipped with the upgraded Bravo 3 outdrive. This was the first time that I've personally driven one of these new twin prop drives, and boy was I impressed. This boat literally jumped up on plane in just a few seconds. Cruising along at about 3,000 RPMs, I was amazed when I looked down at the speedometer and saw it approaching the 28-mile-per-hour mark. I'm told that at that comfortable cruise, she's only burning 13 gallons per hour. The standard tilt and power steering made this boat almost effortless to drive. There is literally no feedback or pull at the wheel in any operating range. In fact, I've never driven a single-engine stern drive boat that was this easy to maneuver, especially when backing down or in tight spots. Every Sea Ray is engineered for conditions that far exceed normal use. Sea Ray stands at the forefront of the boat building industry in the use of modern fiberglass technology, but still, each Sea Ray is laid up the old-fashioned way, by hand. All boats are backed up by a transferable 5-year warranty. There are no shortcuts taken in the building of these world-class boats, from the 270's Big Brother, the 65-foot cockpit motor yacht, down to the 14-foot jet-powered Sea Raider. You'll know why Sea Ray quality has become the most envied quality standard in the boating world. With room to seat the whole family, this starboard cockpit table handles more than just lunch on the water. This port side storage compartment houses the standard shore, power cord, and receptacle. After a refreshing swim, you can board the boat from this built-in platform with ladder. Shower off with hot and cold water here, then re-enter through the cockpit door. The port side lounger and back-to-back helm seat offer more than adequate seating and room for all. In bad weather, just snap up the standard bimini with front and side windows, and at night, snap on the rear cover. Entering the cabin area was easy through this large sliding door with stainless steel track. Once inside, it's hard to believe that this boat is only 27 feet long. The list of standard amenities is large, starting with this starboard side galley with fiberglass sink and high faucet, alcohol electric stove, microwave, and AC/DC refrigerator, a large trash receptacle, and upper and lower storage. All the features of home for those weekend getaways. I love the large stand-up head compartment with full functional head and holding tank. The shower stall was larger than expected for a boat this size. Ample storage in the vanity and side storage for toiletries. The large versatile V-berth doubles as a dinner table. Again, more storage is found below the bunks and in these large closets. This mid-cabin offers privacy for guests with plenty of fresh air from these aft-screened windows.
This is a 270 Sundancer, and normal price on it's around $75,000, and we've marked this boat down to $64,900. We have two boats available. One's a 96 with a generator, or we have a new 97 without a generator, same price.
It's really unbelievable how much Sea Ray is packed into a 27-foot boat. From performance to comfort, this boat has it all. Reporting for ShipShape TV, I'm Elizabeth Saunders. Back to you, John.
Nick, I don't know how these manufacturers are doing it. They are putting out some incredible product.
It's scary, John. I think it's technology. You know, the amount of materials that are available today, the resins, the composites, the treatments, the gel coats, everything. Good stuff.
I'm telling you, that was an electric boat. Yuck, yuck. All right. Why have we put two batteries on one side, one battery on the other side? Is that gonna mess up our weight distribution?
It might affect our balance a little bit, John, and we're in the preliminary stages of rigging on this boat. I put the larger battery on the starboard side, and then I put the other two batteries, which are a little heavier, on the port side, because most of the time everybody seems to favor the driver's side anyway, and that's going to make a difference. When we install our water tank and do some of our other rigging, we'll keep that in mind in placement.
Excellent. Well, Nick, you were going to show us some wiring techniques of how we're going to put this thing together. Why don't you get into that?
All right.
Let me use that wrench. I'll tighten this up a little bit.
We're going to start with making a connection, and this is 2-gauge wire, and wires in battery cables, a primary wire, goes down into the aughts, and I call it negatives, and you get into your 1/aughts, 2/aughts, and you get into some real thick stuff like you see on your diesels and such. This 2-gauge is more than adequate for what we're doing. I'm going to peel back about a 1/2 inch and expose this tinned wire. Then I'm going to take the connector that we're going to use and snap it in a pair of vice grips. I'm going to heat it up, and I'm going to fill it about halfway with solder. And I'm looking to do a couple of different things here. I want to get a real good bond in between the wire and the connector, as well as get a crimp. So we're getting two different bonds here. We're going to get our solder bond and our crimp bond. Once I get this solder to melt down in, I'm going to insert the battery cable and turn it upside down. And what that's going to do for me is allow the heated solder to run into the cable and make a permanent connection. And we're good and hot there. I'm going to insert it, turn it upside down. Now that solder is running in and making a real permanent connection. While it's still warm, I'm going to take it over to my crimping tool. I'm going to insert it, and I'm going to get a crimp. Now I have a solder and a crimp. I'm going to take it a step further with some heat shrink. I'll heat that heat shrink up over the end, and we're going to have a connection that's going to last forever. This one's never going to fail.
Well, right now we need to hear a word from the people who make this show possible, so please stick around.
Here's what's coming up next on Shipshape TV. Gloria Piedmont of New York, New York asks, is there any legal requirement for me to insure my boat? Answer coming up from Maritime attorney Gail Hawks right after this. Here is today's maritime law question. Is there any legal requirement for me to insure my boat?
The short answer is no, there's no requirement to insure your vessel. Unless you've obligated yourself to do so contractually. And the most common situations are when you finance your boat or when you put your boat in a marina or some other storage facility. In those cases, you may be required to have liability insurance, you may be required to have hull insurance. If you don't keep your boat insured, then you stand a chance of being held in breach of contract and either losing your boat or being told to vacate the facility.
And now back to the project.
This is the area in which we selected to install our isolator. Now, Nick, different manufacturers recommend different types of isolators. What's up with that?
Depends on the outboard. Some outboards charge their accessory batteries or can run an isolator through an AC current, so you need a regulator rectified isolator. Other ones have isolated terminals that come right off the battery. Some of them have higher amperage. So almost any outboard or even inboard can use an isolator. You just got to make sure you pick the right one. Definitely check with the dealer and see which one you need.
Did a real nice job on this daisy chain. Why don't you show us what you did here?
Okay, with the grounds, it's important that each of the batteries again interconnect, and basically we just went from one battery to the other. Then I ran here on our crank batteries, one back to the port and one back to the starboard motor. Now we got to get into our battery switches, and we're going to explain how to wire these switches up to be independent from battery to battery to battery.
We'll take it away. Let me get out of your way.
This is a Cole Hersey battery switch, and I've been wiring batteries and systems for about 20 years, and I found this to be one of the most durable ones on the market. That's why I chose it. Now, the function of this switch is that it allows us to choose whether the accessory or the engine or whatever this switch is driving to decide which battery it's going to pull from. For example, if I would have the switch on number 1 and it would be a port engine, that means that port engine is going to start and crank off of its port battery. That's going to be our normal position. When I flick this switch over to 2, we're going to wire it so that in the number 2 position, the port motor will then pull its power from the starboard battery. Now again, the switch is going to represent the motor. When we put it on both, the port motor will have the advantage of pulling off of the both port and the starboard battery. So we're going to start there and wire up just 2 switches to begin with. Again, the port and the starboard battery switch are going to flip-flop.
So Nick, let me get this straight. If one battery is low, say your port battery is low,
Okay.
and it won't turn the engine,
Won't turn the port motor.
the battery switch, you can flip it over to the starboard battery, and then you will start your engine.
Right, and you can either do what you said and flip it over to number 2 and have that motor start off the starboard battery, or flip it to both and let it start off both batteries. Maybe both batteries are a little low, and on both they might start the motor together. What I did prior to mounting the battery switches was make up all of the 2-gauge battery cables and connect them to the back of the switches. Now this allows us to draw from a good battery in case of a failure. Now I like to take my time when routing battery cables and make sure they're not crisscrossed or tangled, and then tie them up real well with good tie wraps. Next, I'm making some red 10-gauge wires to run from the isolator to the starboard and accessory battery so they can get properly charged.
Nick, I understand about the battery switch being able to maybe switch power if an alternator goes out on a motor like that, but a lot of guys, you know, they get out there and their accessory battery goes down, they lose their electronics. What have you done to prevent that?
We've tied the accessory battery in with the starboard crank battery. I was going to go with the port, but the way it laid out, I went with the starboard. When I take the accessory battery switch and flip it to position number 2, I'm allowing the accessories, the electronics, boat lights, etc., to run off of the starboard battery as well. So I can, sometimes you get a total battery failure. The battery's just dead. I can flip over and run all the electronics off of that starboard battery and let the starboard motor charge it as well.
Well, real quick, give us a diagram of how you wired this thing.
Okay. Real simple, John. Normal operation, each battery switch, 1, 1, 1. The port motor, starboard motor, accessory. Port and starboard motor flip-flop to 2. Port and starboard batteries flip-flop. Accessory on 2 allows the accessories to run off of starboard battery. What we're going to do is take a break. We'll explain a little more when we get back.
Stay tuned for more Ship Shape TV.
Surehold brushes are the go-to choice worldwide for quality deck brushes, featuring split-end bristles that hold more soap and water for effortless and effective cleaning, an iconic solid wood block that is exceptionally durable and long-lasting, a rubber built-in safety bumper that protects surrounding surfaces from accidental damage, corrosion-resistant fittings made from marine-grade alloys that will never rust or corrode, SureLock system compatibility for positive locking into any Surehold handle, quickly and easily change brushes while saving space and time. Each Surehold brush is proudly built in the USA to Surehold's famous quality standards. Surehold, clean and simple.
We now return to Ship Shape.
Well, I got to tell you, this is one of the prettiest isolated battery systems that I've ever seen.
One of the most functional too, John, and that's real important in a boat when you're going out in the ocean. And if anybody'd like a diagram of it, we'd be happy to send you one. You can try us on the internet.
Our web address is www.shipshapetv.com.
Or you can give us a fax at 626-4348. That's area code 561-626-4348.
We'll fax you that diagram. Well, we want to thank a couple of people too for this show. We had some supplies donated. We need to naturally thank the guys from Exide Batteries for our batteries. We need to thank the Juno Beach store, West Marine.
West Marine, Juno Beach, thanks a lot, guys. And also our friends down at Land and Sea, Sea Choice.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
And Ken from Boaters World. Well, we're about out of time, but guys, until next week, keep your boat ship shape. Nick, I think after we get all of this done, what we need to do is put in a custom hatch. Well, today we're going to hook up the fuel fill and the
to go on the tank, they're spring-loaded ball and thingamajigger there.
right, and wire a 3 isolated. And look, I'm a snake.
The ship shape boat carrier.